Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we have Suleiman Bulbulia. He is the president of Barbados Muslim Association. He was a former member of Religious Advisory Committee on National Affairs, appointed by Prime Minister and Minister of Ecclesiastical Affairs to advise government on matters of national importance from religious perspective. Today he will be speaking about the Muslim communities and their integration in Barbados. Please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am very honored to be here to present on the Muslim community of Barbados. Barbados is an island in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is a region of beauty and immense peace and tranquility. And it's made up of islands that stretch from Bahamas in the north to Trinidad in the south. Barbados is the most easterly island of this chain of islands in the Caribbean. We're a small island. We're about 166 square miles, and we became independent in 1966. We were ruled by the British for over 300 years when they first came to the island in the 1600s. And then in 1966, we became independent. We also attained our republic. We are the world's newest republic, having attained becoming a republic in 2021. Barbados is made up of Barbadians who primarily of African background. As you know, when the British colonized this part of the world, they also introduced the harsh system of slavery. And they brought with them, they captured many of our African brothers and sisters and brought them over as enslaved. So Barbados is made up of primarily persons of Afro-Barbadian background. And we have a majority Christian community here in Barbados. The Muslim community has a very long history in Barbados. There is evidence of Muslims among the enslaved who came from Africa first and foremost. To Barbados. Unfortunately, they could not practice their faith religion because the system did not allow for that, and so they lost their faith over generations. But the first known Muslim after the slavery period was an East Indian who came from Bengal around 1910, and he came to Barbados in search of better economic standards, livelihood, and he arrived in Barbados and he settled here. Following him were a number of other Muslims from Bengal, that's West Bengal. And then in 1929, 4 Muslims from the Gujarat region came to Barbados, again by chance. They came looking for a better way of life. And at that time, Barbados was ruled by the British, India was ruled by the British. And so it was easy to travel between the two countries by boat, by ship. And so they arrived in 1929. And when they came in 1929, they found the Bengali Muslims here living comfortably, and they liked Barbados. And so they stayed. And when they stayed on, more Muslims from the Gujarat region of India came to Barbados and established themselves. So since the early 1900s, we have had Muslims living and establishing themselves in Barbados. And then as the more Muslims arrived and they settled in this island, they then begin to have a desire to establish institutions like the masajid and the madaris and so on. So in 1951, the first masjid was constructed and opened, and you had the 5 times salah and the Jummah, and you also just shortly after had a madrasa started to teach the children how to read Quran and Islamic studies. So from 1951, the first masjid was established in Bridgetown, the capital city of Barbados. Then in 1957, just 6 years after, the second masjid in the capital city, the city mosque, the Medina Masjid, was open and is there. So these 2 masjids are the main historic mosque of our capital city, Bridgetown. They're still there and they're still very much active. With the 5 salah, the Jummah, and the madaris, the madrasas, where they teach the children. The city mosque is now a building of historical significance, national historic significance, and awarded that by the government of Barbados, because the city masjid, when it was opened in 1957, it maintained its architecture and structure until this day. So that hasn't changed. That footprint, the blocks, the windows, the doors, that hasn't changed. It's a building of historical significance. Bridgetown and its garrison is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So the masjids fit into the UNESCO World Heritage Site in the capital city of Bridgetown. As Muslims established themselves on the island, they begin to practice business, educated themselves, and the community grew. So we have today about 3,000 Muslims on the island, engaging in various forms of businesses and so on, but they have also established institutions. We have more masjids now. We have about 5 masjids and then several other places of prayer and salah. We also have one Muslim school, which follows the government curriculum for primary and secondary. And they have over close to 200 students there in that school, from the primary level right up to the high school level. And they follow the government curriculum, but it's a Muslim school, so they incorporate the Islamic studies and the Quranic studies within the curriculum to teach the children. We also have a number of other institutions on the island that cater to the social needs of Muslims. We have the Barbados Muslim Association, of which I'm the secretary of the Barbados Muslim Association, and that's a body that represents Muslims and issues of Muslims on the island to the government and other agencies if there are any issues or if we need to have interfaith dialogue. We are part of that. We also have the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies, and they take care of the needs of our Muslim sisters, females, young and old, and they do a number of social activities for them. We also have the Muslim Funeral Trust, which takes care of the burial of Muslims. We have sections in the main cemetery and also in private cemeteries. If a Muslim passes away, we have a place that we can bury them. The Muslim community has played an active role in Barbados over the years. From the time that the first Muslim came until this day, we have been part and parcel of the Barbadian society. We have gained a lot of respect from the wider Barbadian community and from the government as well over the successive governments of Barbados since independence. In the beginning, many of our Muslim who came early, the early migrants, Muslims who came, they established the itinerant trade, which meant that they would take goods and sell them on credit to more of the poor Barbadians, and they will do so on very generous terms of credit. And that type of business, that trading, going out into the countryside and selling products on credit, generous terms, and you know, you pay a small amount over a period of time, that created a lot of goodwill for the Muslim community and Muslims in Barbados. We became known as people who would help others, and so that was a very positive impact that we made through business. Of being able to sell to Barbadians who did not have the means to buy cash. At that time, you could only buy cash with the merchants in the city and other places. But the Muslim became a buffer between the merchant and the person who wanted to buy in terms of selling on credit. And that created a lot of goodwill, and that business remains until this day by a number of Muslims still engage in that business. And many leaders in our society and community, politicians and teachers and others would tell you that, you know, as a child growing up, their family were not well off. They were not economically well off. And the Muslim itinerant trader helped them along in terms of being able to give credit to the parents to allow them to get school clothes, school shoes, books, and so on, to allow them to go and get an education to better themselves. And so they give a lot of thanks to the Muslim trader, businessman. So that was one aspect of the early Muslims when they came, and that continues to the day. The other thing that the Muslim community in Barbados did was they got involved in social activities, charitable activities, and they gave back to the community in varying forms, usually by means of financial donations, aid to civil society organizations, to government institutions, and they assisted wherever they can. If there was a tragedy, a fire, we get hurricanes, a storm, we will give back to the community. And that was very well documented during COVID in the last 2-3 years, during the period of COVID when many people were out of work and it was difficult. the massages, they got together and they gave hampers, food hampers to the neighbors around them, the Muslims and the non-Muslims. They gave food hampers. And so this went down very well with our community. So we have done a lot of that in terms of social charitable work within the community, and we continue to do so in the Barbados Muslim community to try to be part of our society. Additionally, we have also engaged ourselves in a lot of interfaith activities because, as I mentioned, Barbados is predominantly a Christian society, but you also have other faiths represented here. The Hindus, the Jewish community, although very small, has a long history in Barbados. In fact, Bridgetown, our capital city, has one of the oldest Jewish synagogues in the Western Hemisphere. We have Caribbean religious representation as well among different groups. And so what we have done as a community is to make ourselves part and parcel of the interfaith dialogue and interfaith activities on the island. And so we will get involved in any activity where the faith groups come together and do things together. One of the highlights of that interfaith getting together is our National Independence Service, which is every year in November. And for that, the government has said that they would like to have a multi-faith service of Thanksgiving. And so we have participated in that service for a number of years among other religious groups as we celebrate and we give thanks for being an independent country. Additionally, we also spend time to educate others about Islam and Muslims. We do so in our schools, our public schools. We do so in our tertiary institutions like our colleges and our universities, where we are invited to come and speak about Islam and Muslims and Muslim culture and Muslim history in our country and our region as well. And so that helps also to break down any barriers and to help to dispel any misconceptions and misinformation that is usually found in the media and other places. So we do a lot of that as well to help people to come to an understanding of who we are as a community, as a faith, as a global faith as well. Additionally, Barbados is a country that is recognized for its tourism. We get tourists from many parts of the world, especially North America and Europe, and Barbados is seen on everybody's bucket list as a place to go to visit. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful island. It's crystal clear blue waters of the Caribbean Sea. The beaches are white sandy, and it's a lot of natural beauty here, peaceful country as well, natural landscapes that lend to a very nice place to come for a holiday. And so as Barbados builds out its tourism, we recognize as a community that halal tourism is something that can definitely play a part in our tourism offerings. And it has a lot of elements that will help to build halal tourism here. So many Muslims don't necessarily as yet see Barbados as a destination for halal tourism, but that is something that we are building out to help the economy of Barbados through halal tourism. And now Muslims are beginning to see Barbados as a place to come to. So where traditionally they will go to other countries, Muslim majority countries. We are hoping that they will also see Barbados as a place to come to. We have the elements. We have the masajid. We have a history. We have heritage. We have halal food. Halal food now is readily available in several places, restaurants. We have halal chicken on our supermarkets. We have halal caterers, and so the Muslim halal food is available. It is welcoming. Barbados is a welcoming destination to the Muslim community here in Barbados is treated very hospitable. There are no issues in terms of people not liking Muslims. We are acceptable, and we are part and parcel of the Barbadian society, and we see ourselves in such a way. Our Muslim women, alhamdulillah, can wear the hijab freely without any problems. It is now recognized that they can take the ID photos and their passport photos with the hijab on. That previously did not exist, but we advocated for that, and the government did the last few years allow for that to happen. So they can practice freely their faith and dress as they Islamic allows for and establishes. So we are a country that welcomes Muslims. So halal tourism is something that we are hoping to build out in our country. And part of that halal tourism offering is not strictly about beach and sand and sea, but it's about the Islamic heritage of this island. And it's a long heritage. As I mentioned, the first Muslim came here in 1910, but previous to that, again, as I mentioned, Muslims among the enslaved, and there is now evidence and research being done to bring out that story as well. Muslims among the enslaved. It is estimated that around 30% of the enslaved brought from Africa were Muslim to this part of the world, to Americas and the Caribbean. That 30%, as high as 30% of the enslaved were Muslim. And we have found in some research so far, and then more research needs to be done, that there were Muslims among the enslaved in Barbados. And so we are hoping to build out that story. Barbados has here a enslaved burial ground which is intact. And we have found that that was found in the 1970s. The government is now building out something around that burial ground. It's unique in the whole Western Hemisphere because usually enslaved burial grounds are not kept in the way that this was kept. And we, as the Muslim community gets involved, we recognize that among those buried in this enslaved burial ground were Muslims based on some of the findings we have, the archaeologists and so on have found in this area. And so we're working to help build out this area and to make it a place that, a sacred place where people can visit as well and reflect upon our history that was not very good, but we need to reflect upon it as well. So we are trying to also build out the heritage of Muslims among the enslaved. And even before that as well, there is evidence of the arrival of Africans, perhaps Muslims too, before even the Europeans came. And that is again another history that we would like to bring out for our country. That before the Europeans arrived to this part of the world, there were Muslims and Africans coming from Africa to this part of the world, sailing and coming to this part of the world and interacting with the people of this part of the world. And so these are stories, these are histories, these are legacies that we want to build out in our story as we develop halal tourism for our country. We are working also with the Ministry of Culture to build out this story and heritage, even for Barbadians to understand it. And so as we work as a community, we see ourselves as being part and parcel of the Barbadian society. We have been recognized, many of our Muslim brothers and sisters community have been recognized by government as playing a very important role in this society. And we are given a seat at the table when discussions are made for the development of Barbados. We are given the opportunity to say something, to give our perspective. And this is welcome. This is welcome for a small country, a small minority of people. We are given an opportunity to say, and so we interact with all the institutions and the agencies. So I think Barbados has a very good, beautiful opportunity here, and Muslims here are very well taken care of and well established in Barbados. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving idea on the Muslims and also promoting the Islamic tourism over there and giving all the pictures, especially the history. It's interesting, the history of the Muslims over there and African who traveled before Columbus. A lot of studies going on that. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights and hope we will have more opportunities in future.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.